have been busy, parents, just so you know, have been busy studying about the Holocaust, studying about how the Holocaust came to be, what were the things historically that gave rise to the Nazi era in Germany. And last week they had the opportunity to learn a little bit more about people who were rescuers, people who were bystanders, people who were perpetrators, people that took part in different aspects of this era that we've come to call the Holocaust. This evening we have a very, very special program that can't take place unless there's absolute quiet here. And I know for 7th graders it's hard, but I also know that you can rise to the occasion and do it. Okay. We have a member of our Holocaust Committee at Shari Tefillah, Shari Litsky, who is now going to explain the program to you. Thank you.
So, as your teacher was talking about, you've just spent some time learning from books, from hearing about the Holocaust, but you tonight have a unique opportunity. Tonight we have with us a dear friend of mine, Joan Ferencz. Joan is herself a Holocaust survivor. There are not many opportunities you will ever have, if any, to hear somebody who was there, who can give you a first-hand account of what she experienced when she was only just a few years older than you are now. She was a teenager. And she's going to tell you from her heart what she experienced, what it meant to her. It is my honor to call her my friend, Joan Ferencz.
Good evening. I am here to talk a little bit about history, the Holocaust, and as you know, I am a survivor. I'll tell you a little bit about my childhood and what had happened and how it led into the tragedy. I was born in Hungary. Hungary is a country in Central Europe, in between South and North. I grew up in a family, a large family. I lived my mother, my father, I had sisters, I had brothers. We lived a nice, normal life. We went to school like all of you. We had friends, we did sports. We actually grew up having fun to a certain time of my life. Then when I was still very young, all of a sudden we heard that this dictator in Germany came to power, and his aim is to conquer the world. Now, as a young girl, being in school and having fun, I didn't think much about it, and I said, oh, it will never come to us. And I just went on with my life. And we did go on for a couple to 3 years, normally, even though then by now I was beginning high school, and I began to be aware that really the war is rampaging through Europe, and this dictator Hitler is occupying country by country, starting with Czechoslovakia, Poland, France, Holland, Belgium, and so on and on. And it began to make me think already, oh my God, what is going to happen here? And sure enough, the Hungarian government began slowly to cooperate with Germany. And slowly we began to have, feel the sting of it. The first thing was that every Jewish person, the first law came out, that every Jewish person has to carry with them an ID indicating that they're Jews. Then we were getting restrictions. If you graduated high school, restrictions to get into college. A Jewish student was not able to get into college. And as the war went on, the young men were recruited into not the army, work for the army. What that meant, they were called into the army without the uniform, without any arms, just work with a yellow band on their hands and do hard work for the army. I had two brothers who went away, and I haven't seen them. They went away in 1943. I haven't seen them till after the war. They were working for the army, for the Hungarian and German army, on the front, on the Russian front. And hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands, froze to death because it was very, very hard. That was the first thing. Then, in the spring of 1944, all the rumors came to life. Germany occupied Hungary. And as soon as they occupied Hungary, they began to come every day and twice a day and maybe 3 times a day. Orders were posted all over the city, new orders. I have to tell you, they had to do a very quick job because the Hungarian Jews were maybe the last ones still existing in Europe. Hungarian Jews somehow were spared, but its final solution was not completed until they wanted to annihilate the Jews of Hungary. So it was a very, very trying and scary time. First these decrees and orders came out. Everyone, without exception, has to wear a yellow star on their blouses or on their chest, on their blouses or jackets or whatever. Next, curfew. You could not get out, only a designated time of the day, just to go out and get the most important, maybe some food. Then ultimately, an order came out that the Jews will be relocated to a designated part of the city, and they have to leave everything behind, except they could take some personal items. So I can remember my mother making knapsacks for each of us, and we just put in some certain personal stuff, and we had to just leave and go to a designated part of the city and move into a little house and share it with other families. Time was very trying. It was very hard sharing with other people and living there. But I wish it would have stayed like that because the family was together. We struggled, and it was very hard to live like that, but we still were together. But not so, for not long. One morning, an order came posted all over that in 2 days you have to leave your quarters where you are now and go out just in the street and wait for orders. Old, young, children, babies, pregnant, everyone. Just empty the quarters. That was just exactly a month after they occupied the country. So everybody had to follow orders. I have to explain to you that actually young men were not around. They were all called into this work, to the army, to work for the army. They were just, older people and women and children. We went out. It was a beautiful morning. I can remember the date, May 16, 1944. We all walked out of our houses, out into the street, and wait for orders. We stood there, almost all the city. I can't begin to tell you the lines there. You couldn't really see the end of the line. And stood there, and stood for morning, and stood, and we didn't know what's going to happen. People were almost collapsing already. Then finally, it was dusk already. The German and the Hungarian militia came with their bayonets and told us to line up and march after them. I want to tell you that there were older people that couldn't keep up with the march. I can still remember how they were kicked and just pushed and kicked with their bayonets. Some of them fell into the gutters too. Where are we going? To the train station. We went to the train station, and there we saw these huge, monstrous box wagons, trains, long, one wagon after the other. They pushed us in there, at least 100 people, without seats, no benches, no windows, no facilities, just standing room. And the train stood there, and then finally it started going, and they didn't tell us where they're taking us. And we traveled like that for 3 days and 3 nights without water. People were collapsing, and I must say babies were dying, unfortunately. And excuse me, but the stench was unbearable. The third day at night, I don't know how late at night it was. The train had stopped, and they told us, "This is your place, and you are in Auschwitz." After a while, they opened the doors, and for a moment, just a moment, it was like a hopeful feeling because there was fresh air. I can't begin to tell you what was in there. We just breathed a little air. Pushed us off the train, and there were German SS guards, hundreds of them, all over the place, with bayonets, walking around and screaming, and separating immediately elder people from young people, men from women. Husbands were separated, wives were separated, children, babies with mothers, all different groups. I was holding on to my father I have never seen again after I got off the train. I was holding on to my mother until somebody, one of these, the Germans or one of the capos, capo were Jewish inmates, Polish inmates, that they were there already for a few years, and they designated them to help with this. Somebody put my mother away, and I had never seen her again. So they told us that the old people and the babies with the mothers, the young children with the mothers, will go by bus into the camp, and we young people will have to walk. I also had a sister of 33 years old with two young children, a girl of 10 and a boy of 6. We believed them first, very naive, and they lined us up with SS soldiers on both sides, these young girls, you know, young women. The line was really long, and with SS soldiers on both sides with bayonets were walking us into the camp. We walked and walked and walked, and we got into the camp. We never saw our families anymore. I never saw my mother anymore. I never saw my father, and I never saw my sister with her 2 children. Then they took us into a huge barrack, and we saw on the floor clothing, shoes, just piles of shoes and clothing and valises, name it. Immediately they stripped us naked and disinfected us and shaved our hair and gave us, just threw us a stripe, you know, one of these uniforms, prisoner's uniform, and a pair of shoes. Sometimes there was 2 left shoes or 2 right shoes. Sometimes they didn't ask whether it fits you or not, shoes or clogs. If you dared to go back and just say that this doesn't fit, before you opened your mouth, you got a smack over your head that you didn't know where you are. It was so, the situation was so scary, and so, with all those people there, so lonely, you just didn't know what's going to happen next hour. Then they pushed us into another barrack. And I had friends there. I also had 2 sisters with me, one older one and one younger one. And I want to tell you, we didn't recognize one another. We all had long hair. They shaved us completely, and they gave us those terrible gowns to wear, and everybody called our names. Where are you? Where are you? We just didn't recognize each other. And this must have been already maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. Then they marched us into our barracks, our living quarters. We walked in, and there were rows of they're not beds, little cubicles, one on top of the other, 3 rows. I was living in the middle row. I and my 2 sisters, and pushed us in, and maybe another 3 or 4 girls. Now, the size was maybe, I should say, 6 by 4 and 3 feet high. You couldn't stand up, you couldn't lay down. We just sat facing each other, and we didn't know what to do with the legs. That was our living quarters. Then 2 hours later, and this was every morning, they came in, and in German, they called out, line up, was in German, Seelapel. We had to walk outside and stand outside, waiting for the commander to come and count us. They woke us 3 o'clock in the morning, and he showed up maybe 8 o'clock. And all those hours, we were standing and waiting for him. Then, the food. We had no spoons, no plates, no nothing. When they used to just give us for food a metal dish with some kind of, guk in it. And what do you think how we ate it? Everybody, we went around, everybody took a sip, and whatever was left, it goes back to another sip. That's how we ate. In the morning, they brought big barrels of black coffee and a piece of black bread, and that was our food for the day. This is how we, once a day, they took us to the bathroom. If you sat on that toilet more than the time designated, you got whipped over your head. Once a week, they took us to the bathhouse. The bathhouse was the same as the gas chambers, with heads that either gas or water would come out. So every time they took us, we didn't know whether it would be gas or water. That's how we lived in Auschwitz. I was there for 2 months. My family disappeared. They had gas chambers and they had crematoriums. We saw the crematoriums. We didn't see the crematoriums, but we saw the chimneys burning day and night. After 2 months, the rumors went around that our barrack will be transported into Germany for hard labor. But we have to be selected first. You have to go to a certain barrack, and there will be the SS guards will examine, you'll have to strip naked, nude, and the SS guard will examine you. If you had a birthmark or you had a pimple on your body, you were not allowed to go into Germany. And that meant that you're useless, and you will go where the rest of the people, you'll never live anymore. So, I passed the the selection. That was not once, 2 or 3 times we had to do that. My older sister, who was married, was selected to the other side. And we knew that what's going to happen to her. What am I going to do? I cannot leave her there like this. So we came out of that barrack and we're standing in groups. On the right side were the people who were selected to go for life. On the left side were selected the people who were useless and they'll go to the gas chamber. And I was standing and I looked at my sister and I was crying. I didn't know what to do. It was just luck, I guess. The commander was standing in front of me, talking to somebody. We were standing in the back. And my sister, I told her move over a little. And I don't know how I did it, but I just stretched my hands out and I grabbed her and I pulled her over to my side. I think I saved her life. She came home with us. She got married and she had a son and he has grandchildren. Then we went into we're going into Germany. This time we went into boxcars, but it was improved. We had benches there. And we traveled for 2 days to northern Germany to a place called Gelsenkirchen, which was completely bombed out by the Allies. It was a place where they had oil refineries, and they bombed the place day and night. The U.S. was there at night, and the UK and during the day, or vice versa, I don't remember anymore. We had we lived in barracks, but the barracks were camouflaged. Actually, they looked like military tents. For some reason, I don't know why they did that, and the Allies thought that we're a military camp, so they kept us bombing us day and night. One day, it was a Sunday, we were out in the field, and I think it was the British came, and they literally threw hand grenades on us. They didn't know because we had no hair. They threw hand grenades. They came low down and threw hand grenades. We were 1,000 young women there, and I think about 300 either died or injured, lost limbs, arms, or legs. And it was chaos. It was a terrible, terrible chaos there. I was, I don't know, lucky I came out without a stretch. From there, well, this place was already bombed out. Over there we worked, we replaced railroad tracks, and we worked at buildings, you know. We worked with bricks, and we helped putting bricks on. Very hard work, and we had to replace railroad tracks, and But we didn't complain because we were still alive. From there, they took us into another place, to central Germany, which was called Gelsenkirchen. It was a little town, and they had a munition factory there. And they put us in that factory to work on shifts, 24-hour shifts. 1 week from 6 in the morning to 6 at night, the other week vice versa, from 6 at night to 6 in the morning. We just got to the factory and one shift left and the other shift started. And we worked there, I would say, for about 4 months. In the meantime, something very interesting happened. We discovered there was one woman that got to Auschwitz, and she did not say that she is pregnant, because if she would have said she's pregnant, she wouldn't have been with us. And she was pregnant, and she was about to give birth. So we hid her, and we had a gynecologist between us. And she gave birth, we stuffed her mouth, she shouldn't scream. And the baby was born, and of course we had to smother the baby, but she is alive. We were there for about 4 months, I would say. Then the Allies approached. We heard the Allies already. Now what are they going to do with us? They decided to march us away. And we marched, and we got into death march. We marched for 6 weeks from one town to the other. We stopped in barnyards, dirty, filthy barnyards, either to sleep. Either we slept outside, or we slept inside lice-infected barns. One day, the commander, he was unbelievable bad. He lines us up in the barnyard at the end of the day and points to a young girl. Come stand by me. Nobody, I at least didn't know what happened. And without a word, he took his gun out and shot her in the head. And said, you're going to get the same thing if you're going to do it. Guess what she did? She accepted a piece of bread from a German woman while we were marching. We had to bury her in that dirty barnyard. We marched for 6 weeks, day, I would say about 25 kilometers daily. And we got into Czechoslovakia the very last day of the war. One morning, we wake up in this barnyard, in this barn, and we hear rumbling, and we look out, between the cracks, and we see tanks, Russian tanks. But the Germans disappeared, and we were still locked in. Finally, a Czech militia guy with a white band came and opened the doors, and he said, "You're free." That was great, but freedom wasn't so easy. We were strangers in a strange country, crushed emotionally, physically, financially. What do you do? Where do you start? It took a long time. Well, first they got us together and we went into a hotel and they brought us some food. Then they got a train, a whistle train, and took us back to Hungary. And we stopped at each station. And I remember we got into Budapest. And a friend of mine who lived there came to the train station, and she looked for friends from her hometown. She took us to her house and made us a dinner. And I'll never forget, and I looked at her and I said, "You're so beautiful, look at me. I'll never be like you anymore." I had my uniform on, lice bitten all over. She said, you'll see that you will. Well, it took a long time. When I got home to my hometown, I didn't find anybody, no parents. There were young people, there were people there like me, living with no children. Children didn't exist. And no older people, just young people, and we didn't know where to start. I had a friend of mine who came home before me, and he organized a kitchen. So we were able to go to the kitchen to get some food. And but he was a friend of mine, and then he became my husband. He came home and went from house to house and told these people, "I need sheets, I need beds, I need kitchen facilities, and you better come up with it." Yeah. And they did give it to him, and he organized, I wouldn't say he alone, and other people who came, other friends who came with him. And by the time he got home, at least there was a kitchen that I could go and have food. I went home to my house. Our furniture was packed away, and the person who confiscated our house gave me a room to live in. My father's business was confiscated when the Germans came in, and I didn't know what to do, but I wanted that man to get out of there just to feel a self-satisfaction. So I did succeed. I went up to the police station, and I told them that this man confiscated my father's place, and maybe I'll have some of my brothers come back. Maybe they'll be able to open something and trying to make a living. He did come with me. He told them, "This place belongs to her father, and you better get out," which was self-satisfaction. Yeah. Now, and slowly, we somehow, it took a long time to get back to some kind of normal life, but it took a long time. But I want to mention that this past summer, Rabbi Greenberg led a group of people to Eastern Europe. And my family and I joined him. And we visited the camps in Poland, the death camps, and of course we went to Auschwitz. And I was able to show the people the barrack that I was in and how I existed there. I'm not going to say living, how I existed there. And how I went to, and I showed them the train station where we lived. And the people were just so emotional. And I was very gratified that I was able to show people that it did happen, because I know that I could not imagine the terrible things that they did to people and how, but at least, some of the people saw that it really, really happened. And it was a self-satisfaction to me that I was able to really show some people that it did happen. So, if you have any questions, I could.
So if you have questions, Joan would be happy to answer.
When you came back to the town that you lived in, and you returned to the town, did non-Jewish people help you guys rebuild your lives?
Well, I came home in my prisoner's dress, and I went into a non-Jewish family, and I asked her if she could lend me a dress. The people were kind of scared to see the people coming back. They were afraid for an uprising or something, yeah. She did give me a dress, but after a while she asked me back for it.
The commander that murdered the young girl, do you know whether he was ever brought to justice?
I don't know. I really don't know. He was the cruelest. He had a monocle, a young man, the cruelest. And just like cruel he was, the SS women, we had SS women taking care of us when we were not taking care of, marching with us. And they used to march along us, and just with boxes of cookies and crackers, and talking to each other and laughing, and we were dying from hunger. The cruelty is undescribable.
Every night, you have dreams or something that, the Nazi people after you, or, what do
You have bad dreams still from it?
I did in the beginning, yes. I had nightmares many, many times. I was married already. I used to have nightmares that I'm running with my children, that here they are again. And I'm running to hide with my children, and I say, oh no, they're not going to do that to my children anymore. Yes, I did. But I got over it.
Hold up here.
Were you ever reunited with any of your family?
Were you reunited with any of your family? Which of your family survived that you saw here?
Oh, well, my brothers came, I saw again that were in forced labor camp. That's why we called it forced labor camp, which was, they worked for the army. And some of my cousins, but very few people get returned.
First of all, I have to say you are beautiful. And my question is, how long was the whole thing sort of,
Well, ironically, the Hungarian Jews were the last ones. In 1944, all the Jews were already, there were millions of Jews annihilated already and suffered. I was in camp for one whole year. Yeah. for May 1944 to May 1945. Yeah.
Do you know what happened in Hitler?
Hitler committed suicide. He lost the war and committed suicide, thank God.
Then moving.
Did you and your brothers end up running your father's company?
I can tell you.
Did you and your brothers end up running your father's company?
Well, my brother, one of my brothers, did not his company, but he opened like a little haberdashery store with stockings and so, and you know, just to have some kind of an income, but didn't stay there long. We all came to the United States. Yeah. It was not to stay there, it was just.
Michael?
How was it to get back to the United States? Or not really get back, but how was it to get
To get to the how I got to the United States? Well, I had one brother who was living here, who went actually to Israel as a young boy. He was a Zionist. Then he came here, and he enlisted in the army, and he was in the war. So he was a GI. And right after the war, he came back to Europe to see who survived. And he was there for a few months, and then we made the papers, and I came back with him. He was able to bring me back. Yeah. Unfortunately, he died a year ago. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Slipped your mind. Okay. Anybody else? Because I know last week there were a lot of questions going around in class. Sure.
When did you get into America?
Oh, a long time ago. I came back really a couple of years after the war. And January 1947, I was here already, thank God. And then my life changed.
Okay, go ahead.
Did you make any friends there that you still keep in touch with?
Do you have friends from the camps that you speak with?
Some I do, yeah. Not too many, but don't forget, this happened a long, long time ago. A lot of them are gone, unfortunately. I don't know, God is still keeping me.
Thank goodness. Yes.
What did SS stand for?
What did SS stand for?
Oh, SS.
Specific. It was the elite.
There was an elite group in the army that they baked her into your
They were the
body.
ones that really
And
did
they
a
were-
lot of the killing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's German.
Yes.
When you were into America,
It's German.
I can't hear you. Stand up.
when you were went into America, did you sort of feel like, oh, this transfer in the beginning, or how did you feel?
How did you feel when you got to America? Was it like a new beginning? Were you hopeful?
When I came to America, I said that this is it. This is going to be my life, and I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to make a life for myself, and I cannot undo what happened, and I'm just going to look forward. I'm not going to look back, and I'm going to make a life for myself. And I got married, and I have a son and a daughter, and they have children, and I didn't look back. I was just making myself a life, and I had a good life. Here, yeah.
Yes. Yes. We are so fortunate that Joan is our member of Shari Tefillah, and I want to especially thank all of our seventh graders for your wonderful behavior and the code that you are
Yes.
treating Joan and the subject with. Thank you. If anyone has more questions, come on up.
Somebody, let's vote a backpack and a scarf and
Why you